And what are you doing?
Just turn it up.
No, I don't want to turn it up. What are you doing?
I'm just touching your phone.
Stop it. I know where it needs to be, so it's
No,
not
it needs
too
to go
loud.
up higher.
No, because when we actually do
can't hear it.
post-production, you don't have to fucking hear it.
I want to hear it.
But in post-production, it'll be too loud.
Shut up.
Oh man, this brings back memories
Jesus
of doing a radio show back in the day.
Yeah, I was on
PKW Radio and then NAAFS Radio. You
guys
were on that.
You guys interviewed me when I was fighting Josh Stansberry.
Josh Stansberry
Yeah,
setting
guy on there.
Yeah, we're setting up the I remember that. I was actually thinking about that the other day. One of the things like that I really miss doing was one of the things that I would bring guys on there and like get to know people, get like their psyche and that. And the whole idea that I would do one of my main job. I always laughed. They said my job for NAFS was the director of public relations, but my actual job was the executive producer. And I don't know why my title said public relations because I never actually did public relations.
Right.
We always I always thought that was really funny. I'm like, that I used to say, like, this isn't my actual job, though.
Right.
Like, I write, edit, produce promo videos. I direct all of them. I would bring guys in, like, fighters in for, like the events at the Fight on the Flats and stuff. I mean, we can talk all about this all when we go live.
Oh, we're live
We're
right
live
now.
now.
Oh, are we?
Yeah. What we do is we normally go ahead and start recording for like 4 minutes, and then that 4 minutes will get cut. And then Norm will come in with, this is Rubber City Throwdown. So whatever there's
Speaking of, welcome to Rubber City Throwdown, the official voices of Honor Fighting Championship. Today we've got special guest Jake Digman. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Well, that was a very strange intro. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Hello.
So
Thanks for having me.
Pretty much what we'll do is we'll get rid of that and then go from
Oh, no, we won't get rid of that.
Well, not after you just said welcome to Rubber City Throwdown.
It's all saying. Now, a lot of it's in post-production. A lot of it will be... We'll clean it up.
So are we like on Facebook Live or anything right now?
No.
Oh, so this isn't actually live.
No.
Oh, okay, all right. Now I'm really confused. I was like, wait, how are you gonna post produce it if it's already live? Okay,
Right, no.
now
Not yet.
And now it makes sense.
Right.
Right.
No, not yet.
Our live feeds we will do during the week through Twitch TV, which is originally like a gaming platform, but we can use it for people use it for like cooking shows.
It's amazing how that's blown up. Like I don't follow it, but like is that still iPhone exclusive? Or is that on Android now too?
No, it's on Android now.
Okay.
I have it on my phone, on my Android as well. It's crazy. A lot of the guys that I follow on there. I mean, one of my favorites, Dr. Disrespect. He's a PUBG and Fortnite streamer, gaming streamer, and he makes probably close to $10,000 a day just in donations alone. He just got sponsored by Gillette. He's also sponsored by like other shit too.
The reason why he's
I'm in
sponsored
the wrong
by-
business, man. I need to get back
Go
into
ahead.
broadcasting.
Just get back into play video games and broadcasting.
Yeah.
Bring up his Gillette theme song. This is the best.
the
best. Now this time, turn it all the way up so you can hear it in the radio.
It was actually used in one of the podcasts at the beginning and at the end of one. And I think I am allowed to play it because it is not copyrighted and everything like that. So I ain't got to worry about getting me a little copyright strike. But this was him singing.
Is that him singing? I didn't
Yeah,
know
but
him.
it's auto-tuned. I'm not gonna play the whole song.
Oh, but it's so good. Gillette.
That's basically just all it is. And because this song was made, he's also sponsored by Old Spice. It's nuts. But
You know all the things that a gamer requires because they don't shower.
that's the difference. Yeah, right. Because they don't shower. But that's the difference, though. That a lot of gamers are mostly they're sponsored by like video game companies,
Epic
computer,
and-
gaming chairs, monitors, equipment, you know, shit like that. And then all of a sudden, this dude comes out with Old Spice and Gillette, and you can actually buy like Gillette razors from his Twitch channel and get like I think like 500 bits or some shit like that on Twitch TV or something. It's just
Really?
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
yeah, it's
It's
nuts.
amazing
really-
how well
that's-
things have come. Yeah, that's just pretty nuts.
That's like a really big jump between two different organizations.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah,
Please shave your face and play more games.
I remember trying for years, trying to get like Budweiser on the center of the cage, calling people, calling them like, hey, like, look, who do I got to talk to? Who's their connection? I'm probably, 10 years too soon. Could have just sat there and played video games, and
Right.
there you go.
You know, speaking of video game companies, you know who I haven't seen do any promotions lately? ID Software.
The hell is ID Software?
ID is the ones that created Quake.
Oh, well, that's why.
Yeah, but say, is that still a thing?
Oh, Quake's coming back. They're doing a Quake 4.
Don't call it a comeback.
We'll see. We'll see, man. It might work.
It might.
I'm more interested in like a lot of FPS games that are coming out now. So a lot of the battleground like Royale type games are kind of like the new fad in video gaming right now. World of Warcraft is coming out with their own type of battleground. They got Fortnite, PUBG, Realm Royale. They've got totally accurate battlegrounds. They're all Royale type games. It's literally like that's the new fad now, and it's gonna take off in the next couple of years. Like that's my personal opinion, but they got a lot going on. And
all right, well, off the gaming
Fable
community.
has just been announced. They're making a new Fable too, but that's interesting. But anyway,
Fable.
enough about video games.
That's an old game.
So what? Last year, I had an open invitation to you, Jake. Come on the podcast, talk a little bit. You actually were in talks at one point of possibly being a co-host on Rubber City Throwdown as well. Obviously that had fallen through, and now here you are, special guest on Rubber City Throwdown over a year later actually, since we had actually had that conversation. You said you had a lot on your mind about the direction of where MMA is going. So let's talk about that. Let's get into that a little bit.
I mean, all right. Well, first of all, I think before you get to where everything's going, you should probably be looking back to where things have been.
Okay.
Before, you know what I mean? Like this weekend, we were talking earlier off air or on air. I don't know. I kind of got thrown for a loop on that one. This weekend would have been Fight Night in the Flats up at Nautica, which I started in 2000. I didn't start Fight Night in the Flats, but I started in the business in 2005. How I got into this, I was producing. I was an intern for WKNR, and they had a pro wrestling radio show. And anybody who knows me, follows me on Facebook, Twitter, I don't tweet because I don't get the point of it.
Right.
But anybody who follows me, I've been a lifelong pro wrestling fan. So my dream back then was to get into the pro wrestling business. So I went to WKNR. I went to the Ohio Center for Broadcasting. Ended up getting an internship at WKNR working for STC. STC was Sports Talk Cleveland, which at the time was their website affiliate. They had a pro wrestling show on, and then after they had an MMA show on. We went. I was doing the wrestling show one day, and a gentleman that you know, Greg Kalikas, was hosting. He hosted PKW back then, which was originally just a pro karate show, which kind of evolved into an MMA show. Once this is like the genesis of when MMA really hit mainstream. So we started talking, and he was like, afterwards, he's like, told me that there was a event down in Columbus, an MMA show where he needed somebody to come down and work his booth. It's really funny. At that night, I met a gentleman who I just recently had a conversation with, have to meet up with to get my Steve Hyman t-shirt from, and rest in peace, Steve, love you. Chad Kuhn came up to the booth, and I was working the booth with him. And mind you, I've never seen an MMA show in my life.
Right.
Like, I knew of UFC, but I knew kind of like, you know, when it was banned and then came back, and the Ultimate Fighter season 1 was just about to take off on TV. So I went to this thing, and I got put in this booth, and he's like, "Hey," and I'm standing next to Ruthless Robbie Lawler.
Really?
Who I didn't know him I didn't know who he was, like, because I'd never met him before.
Really?
So
Wow.
he's like, "Hey, do the booth with well, let's ask him if we can set our booth up with Robbie." And Robbie's like, "Yeah." So Greg's all excited and happy, and I'm like, cool, because you know, I'm like, I don't know, I'm just a noob.
Right.
So I go in there, I start talking. Greg gives me his press pass, and I go down to cage side. This is back in the day when there was like, you know, it was free reign. So like all these guys are down there taking all this stuff, and I'm watching, and I watch the fight. And I come back up with it, and I'm talking to, and Greg goes down. I start talking to Robbie Lawler, and all these people are getting his autograph. And I'm like, I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, and don't take it the wrong way. Like, but you must be a pretty big deal in this. And he's like, I just fought it was like fresh off the heels of UFC 44 or something.
Right.
I'm like a total noob talking with him. I'm like, that's cool. So I started asking him, like, you know, what they're doing. And like, you know, he's the one who explained to me, you know, what happened when we are going to the ground, what, like, I learned about he taught me what the ins and outs of the gist of MMA in that conversation. The car ride back, I'm talking with Greg. He asked me what I thought about him. I'm like, okay, it's pretty cool. I can see where this is going. The thing that they don't have right now, though, that the only difference I see is, unless I know him personally, I have no reason to care about fighter A versus fighter B. There's no story to the actual fight. It's just a fight for the sake of a fight.
Because you had that wrestling, you know,
And that because I came in from the mentality of wrestling, and even like Muhammad Ali had that. He sold you with his gift of gab, and then his talent in there, and different other things in other sports that, you know, it's the ability to cut a promo, but mainly was, you know, from wrestling and doing the wrestling show and whatnot. So he goes, "Hey, you want a job?" And I became the executive producer for PKW. And at that time, it was great. I came in and we got to, I was booking guests. I remember I was driving to the studio and I'm talking to Randy Couture, booking him because we had booked him and Chuck Liddell on the show the same day. Oh, yeah, it was great. Like I had all their numbers in my phone and whatnot. This is before things UFC became a super phenomenon that everybody wanted to jump on board with. It was like, it was still in its infancy, and I was very blessed and fortunate. I remember driving up to the studio and Randy Couture just asked me how my day was, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm stuck in traffic right now. Oh, I hate that traffic out here is terrible." And I'm like, "Thanks, man." It was just like, "Oh, you cool? Like everything good still?" It's like, and it was like talking to like a friend, and it was really neat. Like, and I had that going on for a while when Rampage defeated Chuck Liddell for the title. I actually like gave him a call, left him a message and whatnot. He called me back and was just like, "Hey, thanks, brother. You know, appreciate that." So those like that's where I started. And George St. Pierre, we'd have him on several times. I wish the clip still existed. There was one we used as a promo where this a fan from Canada had called into PKW and he was all happy that for George, and George was just shocked that the guy was a fan of his. So he like agreed to have him like, "Hi." He's like, "Do you want to come hang out with me?" That's a really bad GSP impression, but do you want you're a fan of mine? That's very good. Like, oh, thank you. Like next time come fight, I will see you. And it was just like, so that's where like my like started from in all of this.
Archiving every interview, every fighter interview that we do.
Absolutely.
I'm archiving it all.
Man, I wish I had from there, you know, I wish I had a lot of, you know, PKW eventually transitioned into NAAFS radio, but before we got to that, Greg came up to me probably 3 months into the gig of being the producer for PKW, and he's like, "Hey, how'd you feel about doing a fight show?" I'm like what? Like how? He's like, because I told him my dream was always to do a pro wrestling show, because that's always what I wanted to do. Was like I want to put on a wrestling event. He goes, "I know you want to do wrestling, but what if we took the wrestling your vision and we made it MMA?" And I'm like, "How do I do that? That sounds like a challenge." Okay, so luckily for me, we brought guys on a show similar to what you guys are doing here with what was PKW back then. Brought the guys on. They would tell their story of their fight. They'd hype it up from that. One of the first people I remember was interviewing was Jeff Cox, the Grinder, one of the legends of Ohio MMA. If you don't know him, Google him. Every single time I see him, I shake that man's hand. And he came on our show in studio. We were with STC. He was in studio, and we go to the first ever Fight Night in the Flats. And contrary to popular belief, I wasn't the ring announcer at the first Fight Night in the Flats. I was just the floor man. I don't even know if I had a job title. Basically, I was
the first 2005?
September of 2005. It was everybody from all the promoter, like from all the different like gyms and stuff came in to Nautica. We had Rich Franklin was the middleweight champion at the time. He was there. Daniel Puder had just won WWE Tough Enough, I think. He was there for that one. I mean, there was so many different names that were the best part of that was Puder walking around asking all the guys fighting on the card for their autographs beside his poster, and the guy sitting there like, "Wait, he wants my autograph? That dude was just on TV and he wants my autograph?" Oh, it was great. So we go up there and I get left alone first, and I'm 20-some years old at this time, so I'd have been first show, no clue what I'm doing. Like, and I'm running around like all of a sudden, everyone from the venue from Nautica's come like, "Well, what about this?" And I have all the fighters starting to arrive, and I'm like, Greg's stuck. You remember going to Nautica?
Yeah.
Okay. The drawbridge.
Yeah.
When the drawbridge would come up, if you got stuck behind that, you were there for a good 20 minutes. The drawbridge came in Cleveland. So him and Duke Rufus, and Scott Jaffe, who were the ones putting on the show, are stuck behind the drawbridge as everyone's arriving. The Ohio Athletic Commission. Mind you, I've never met any of these people. Here's 20-something me, 24, 25-year-old me maybe. And here we are, like all these people showing up, and I'm just like freaking out because I'm like, I've got no idea what I'm doing. But luckily, I had my team that I put together of a lot of my friends. Actually, the whole team, the whole crew was my friends that volunteered, like just to kind of come out and support, and that started everything. And then we did the first fight night in the flats under Gladiators, and then there was the idea that came along to do the NAAFS
Right.
that kind of evolved into what it became. And we're sitting around at one show, and Greg's like, "Okay, we're gonna do an all amateur series, but we're gonna do it like college football style." I'm sitting there, let's like, what does that mean? And like, the idea was there, and then we tweaked it in 2007, 2006.
Can you get a little bit?
Yeah.
With that?
So
'Cause that's interesting to me. How
Okay,
you
so
do that.
yeah, because they don't do this anymore. What we
Right.
did was something that hasn't been done before, has been done since, and I think was the best of all of them. If you go to an MMA show now, no matter what the promotion is, the amateur fights are just amateur fights for the sake of having an amateur fight.
Right.
Every once in a while, someone will have a quote unquote title fight, which congrats to the champion who wins, but it's just how often do you ever see the amateur champion ever defend their title? Maybe sometimes you do, but most of the times, most promoters just put a title fight on the amateurs for the sake of having a title fight because they think it's going to sell tickets.
Right.
That's every promotion almost everywhere. What the NAAF, and we watched and saw what these people were doing. What we did that was different was we started in 2006, but it was 2007 when it really tweaked and it got into what to be built into. So it became the amateur fighting, the NAAFS Amateur Fight Series, the National Amateur Fight Series. Forgot the national.
It was a North American Amateur Fight Series.
Was the original what it was called? Yeah, it was the North American Amateur Fight Series.
Then they came when you guys started doing pros.
Then they got
American Allied Fight Series.
Yeah, the
right?
person who came up with the name Allied, Matt Trukovich. Anyway, fun little tidbit of traffic.
No, I remember that. I actually remember.
Fun little. He said,
I
just call it
remember-
Allied.
I remember. I think it was his MySpace post.
I think so. Yeah,
It was a
MySpace. Yeah,
post. I remember saying,
yeah.
he go, "You should do this."
Because we were trying to, I'm going to go back to yours, and I'll get back to this.
No, that's fine.
So, so the idea we came up with was instead of just having an amateur title champion, because everybody did that, and I brought up this point in a meeting. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't mean anything because no one actually defends it, and it just goes away. It's a piece of hardware for the sake of like. And back then, guys were having like one fight, and because there wasn't as cracked down as was now.
No, 2006. The heavyweight championship. There was no opponent.
Yeah.
So
Well,
they just gave the
there
belt to him.
was going to be an opponent, but he couldn't fight because of an injury. I think it was an injury, or he was boxing. Anyway, it was going to be Stipe versus somebody. Originally was an idea, and then it was Stans, and Stans couldn't fight. And all this, I don't remember. Anyway, somehow Hedges just ended up with it somehow.
Yeah, they just gave it away, and that's not to.
And that was
not to
06,
get
but it was
off
also
track,
in the
but-
infancy of this too.
Right.
Because I mean, the light heavyweight division back then had 4 guys in it too. I mean, the only one really had people in it because this was taken off. We learned from that going into 2007, first show at Chaparral's.
That was my first show. Baby.
You were there. I remember that
February
first show. I'm like, okay,
17th.
we're going to do this. We're going to launch it right. So it was set up in a tier of a season. Every year would end at Night of Champions,
Right.
which would be in December. So at the beginning of the year, you would have guys, and we knew where we were going. We had a committee, which there was an actual committee. The original 2 members of the committee were myself and Greg. And then as more people got on board and the company grew and the promotion grew, we brought more people in. And everybody would have a vote. And the first idea, which was, hey, let's send it out to like all the owners of the gyms. Let's make this as legit as possible. So if you had a gym, you can vote. But the problem with that was everybody just voted for their own guys, even if they lost. So it's like, never mind. Or they just didn't respond. So it just
Yeah, it's
wasn't
kind of
going to
like
work.
how we've experienced that with trying to get in contact with coaches, gyms, promoters,
Yeah.
just
Oh
to
my
get
gosh.
basic information. No one ever.
Yeah, yeah.
We get over this on every podcast, and that is, if we don't get a hold of you, you don't get a hold of us. Hey, well, you're Mr. John Doe.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Yeah.
the way it's going to be.
Yeah. So, so basically, it would build up to like 2 halves of the season. The first half of the season would end would be Fight Night in the Flats, Nautica first weekend of June every year, and it was like Norm. You can attest to this. I always believed, and we built it up and promoted it, that it was an honor for you you wanted to fight there.
Right.
You would sacrifice everything. It was special. It had a special feel to it, and you were one of the people who had the opportunity, has competed on that stage, and I was in the cage announcing on that stage. It just had this like...
Yeah, we had Jason Dent. Jason Dent fought that night. We had a guy from Brazil. We had
Andre Musi fought Dave Pee Wee Herman that night.
Dave Pee Wee Herman, the UFC veteran Dave Pee Wee Herman. We also had was it What was his name? The guy that was Rashad Evans highlight kicked in the face.
That was a year later. That was Sean Salmon.
Was it Sean Salmon?
It was Sean Salmon.
A year later though.
Yeah, he fought at Fight Night in the Flats. Maybe he did fight at 3. I think
it was 3.
Maybe
I think it was 3.
Maybe he did
the next year. The next year, I didn't end up going to Fight Night in the Flats 4, but Russ Halsey beat Chuck Ellison.
Yeah,
and that was so it was definitely 3 because I remember if we fought on the same card because I remember he beat. Sean Salmon. He beat. Was it Jason Freeman? Was it Jason? Freeman?
He beat. Yes, yeah, it was Freeman. Yeah,
I remember he made.
And then he fought Jason Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, he made a speech and because he originally had gotten booed, and then he made a speech and won over the crowd. It was really nice.
But he really didn't win over the crowd. That's the best part of this. So one of the things.
Like it, right?
So he kept getting booed in Cleveland, no matter what. And then it almost got to the point where it was comical. So at one point before his title fight, he created, or he used the title defense. I was doing the promo videos. Like I would write, direct, edit, produce all of these things.
Right.
I'd bring the guys into the studios up at the station, and I would, I ask them questions, and I'd be like, hey, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to ask you something that's going to make you mad. I'm going to fire you up because I need that for like content. And they're like, okay, and you've trained for a fight. You get it. It's like, especially like when you're, and it was like a couple days before, so they're all in full-on fight mode and they're seeing the guy they're going to fight, so there's something about that just triggers in. So I set up Sean Salmon's one where I set the promo video where he's just like, hey, I've been fighting here for a lot, come on, for once you got to cheer for me louder than my opponent. And he came out to Cleveland Rocks, and I remember the crowd from my sitting where I was sitting booed him, but didn't boo him in a like a we hate you. They booed him in a like defiant pro wrestling style. You want us to cheer you, but we're gonna boo you anyway because you're just trying too hard now. It was, and I love you, Sean Salmon, but it was hilarious. I was like, well, let's see what happens with that. But back to the going full circle. Everybody would fight and everybody ranked, and at the end of the year there was the Night of Champions. Night of Champions.
Okay.
The top 2 guys in each weight class would fight. Those guys fought. The winner was the whatever year it was, 2007, 2008, national amateur heavyweight middleweight champ. You never defended the belt. You would just were the champion.
Right.
With the original premise in mind that was when you win the belt, you're going to go pro. Some guys did, some guys didn't. But I felt that replaced the thing of like, oh, here's, I just beat this guy for this championship. And actually, to me, it made the championships have more meaning.
Right.
And I think it also gave a thing where every show counted, where people were coming. It wasn't just a fight show for the sake of having a fight show.
No, it gave that ultimate ending.
And if you're a fan coming in and you're like, hey, I'm a fan of Norm the Jackhammer Carrero, it's like, okay, he wins this fight. Oh, well, I got to go see what's going to do with the next one, and I got to go see what's going to happen with the next one. So we almost wanted to do a thing, and we never got around to it. We had an idea in place to sell season tickets and all these other things, and it's something I still think could still work to this day, where it's like, that was the premise to it. It was everything was building to a crescendo, and then it reset the next year. So it wasn't just like, well, we're doing this show to this show to this show to this show to here's the featherweight championship fight between these 2 guys, and this guy's going to go fight in this promotion now, he's going to go pro. We're never going to see him again. And next, we're going to have another featherweight title fight between these 2 other guys. So it's like, what was the point of the first one? It never really but the funny thing, if you look at UFC, it's like that now too. I mean, it just is what it is. But I think no one has done that before. No one has done that since. And it set us apart. And I think that's part of what built a camaraderie for it gave a family style atmosphere for what we were doing within NAFs. And we were talking about this when I came in. It had this thing where, and I just saw Nicole, happy birthday. I saw her last night, and we were talking about, just kind of reminiscing, me, her, and Mike were reminiscing about old times. And it's like, everything had this level of it had this feeling of if you were a fan, if you were a part of something that was special because no one else did it, and if everything there was exclusive to that, it was you could go fight in other places, which we always affectionately call, and I will still call every other one right now the same thing, smaller leagues, because 10 years later we're still the bar that every other promotion is measured to.
I will say, even to this day, I still find myself when I was talking with Brian Clark, who was associated with the NAAFS for a little bit.
He was after my time. I joked with him about this. I was like, the book you've got, I literally wrote it.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who literally wrote that book. So, yeah, I had I saw him at the one show, the honor show, and I kind of busted his chops on that one.
Yeah, but I still to this day there's still like the example, the example was like you wrote the book on Ohio MMA and people are still trying to catch up, and I'll still be like, hey, when I'm talking to like Jeremy and I'm talking to guys, and I'll be like, hey man, you remember we should do like a team thing. We could try to get the teams involved because back in the NAAFS,
Team challenge was the bomb. I don't know why we never did a second.
Yeah, it was all teams. It was all about reputation and who you fight for, and like, you don't hear that? It's cutting in and out.
I don't hear nothing.
I didn't hear nothing.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, it was all reputation. It was like, what team you fight for? Strong style. Okay, cool. It wasn't necessarily like the guy you were fighting. It wasn't like, oh, you're fighting this guy. Oh man, he's pretty bad. It was, oh shit, you're fighting a guy. Who's he training? Strong style. Oh shit, victory. Oh shit, well, Instigator back then. But it was
Instigator, Griffin Rawl.
Yeah, all of it.
Good old Rising Phoenix.
Two shows. Wait, three. Sorry, no, two. Two shows.
Two.
Because I was representing Team Domination, which was my team that I created for Fight Night and Flash 3.
Okay.
And I only saw like 2 shows too. It was a rough time back then, but no, yeah, you guys set the standard of the NAAFS had set the standard for Ohio mixed martial arts, and a lot of people still trying. I still miss little stuff like the forums, man.
Oh my God, the message board. I mean, that's really okay. So the message board. I don't know if you were familiar with the. It was originally the PKW message board.
Right. I'm kind of familiar with it because Norm showed me them once or twice, but that was it. Because back then I really wasn't into the MMA community.
Yeah. So this is before it's before MySpace. Well, MySpace was kind of around, but before like MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff.
Right.
So this is like back then there was the Sherdog forum, and Greg had this idea where he goes, "Hey, we need to build up our own forum and get people talking." 'Cause that's what people did back then. They just went on forums and basically just talk shit, and it was hilarious. Everybody,
okay, real quick, what started forums is a thing that my mom and his mom used to do all the day, all the time. There was this old community that was set up through dial-up, and it was set up, and it was called On-Ramp. And all it was a bunch of people getting their computers connected, and it was a message boarding system.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it was.
Yeah. I remember, like when I was in junior high, something very akin to that. It was actually Star Trek nerds getting together talking about Star Trek.
On-Ramp was the same way.
Yeah, it was something like
exactly the same way.
So everybody would the message boards were things really and took off. And when we first started, we didn't have TV clearance. We didn't have anybody else that everybody else that's come since us, and even myself have been involved in things that kind of borrowed stuff that I'd already done, had a blueprint of which to follow. We didn't have a blueprint to follow. We just had a blueprint of what not to do. And we watched, and I'm not going to name names, but if you remember back then, there were several promotions around of this, like, what not to do. So I was like, let's take what they're not doing and let's add this to it. But I told Greg back then, the problem, and this is now, everyone of now and since then has been so obsessed with everybody else. Like, I'm going to be better than this. And they're all like even the inner workings of people, like management on different places are all like, they get so obsessed with what other people are doing. We never did that. We just said, hey, let's just focus on, did you ever see the WWE go acknowledge WCW until they bought it? No, never. So it's like, we just pretended no one else existed. And I'm like, hey, let's just keep focusing and focusing and focusing. And then later on stuff happened but other people came along. But in the early days of that, it was the message board where, like, I remember going to Sports Time Ohio, and we had a meeting because at that time Fight Fest was on STO, and we had a meeting with them, and we were like, hey, this is what we have. And I'm like, we're sitting, myself, Greg, and I want to say Pat Kilkenny was the president of STO at the time. Maybe, I don't know. That name sounds very familiar. Anyway, so we're sitting down talking with him.
There's a lot
of names back then that
I'm just totally joking.
And so so we're sitting in the meeting, and with STO, and I look over, I go, just bring up the message board. So they bring up the message board, and I look at it, and I'm like, holy crap! And they see all these people talking and like talking back and forth, and we're like, okay, you guys got a fan base, you got a following, you're going on TV, and I remember we're leaving like, well, now what do we do? So then we had to come up with, and that's when Mike Moran got brought on board, and We brought well, we had a couple. No, he didn't get brought on board first. The first company we brought, I'm not going to mention them, but good God, were they terrible, awful. Thank God we met Mike, and Mike had shared the same. He had a wrestling mindset, so he shared the same vision that I did. But you couldn't be over the top pro wrestling because I'm sorry, but there's a certain percentage of the fan base of MMA and pro wrestling. You can't go too pro wrestling ish. The UFC walks that line. You can't be like have guys run into a gym and hit someone with a chair or all that stuff, but. Like you can sell it on the drama of that, and that's where it kind of got the message board took off, went on Sports Time Ohio. We're actually on the same time as Fight Fest, and then every commercial that we always did was to promote everything was always an emphasis on what's coming up next. We'd have go to each town and would direct promos and videos and just sell you on the fight of stuff. It's really funny now. I see stuff in every John Q promoter. I'm not picking one out in particular, but it's just them talking.
Right.
And it's like, no one's paying to see you. It's
Right.
but all of so many of them, it's just them talking, sitting there doing I'm like, and I see this constantly and I'm like, okay. I always made a point, again, WWE style. One of the things we did was back in the day, we'd have upcoming events. NAAFS comes to Geneva for War on the Shore. Then we're returning to the Nautica for Fight Night for Nautica Pavilion. It's the third annual Rockin' Rumble.
Who was the announcer? Who was the guy who did the promos? Whose voice was that?
Originally, it was me, and then it was Nick Kubik. Or he was the producer for NAAFS
He
Radio.
was the one in the.
He did the post-fight interviews and stuff with people too. Skinny dude.
That voice at the beginning of the trailers is the NAAFS, like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Is that might have been after me? The one where it was where the battle begins. I think it was Jazz who did that after me.
No, I think.
Or the my favorite one, the NAAFS, except no imitations. that was a good one. That was a nice little, because then people kept coming in and be like, they'd be like, oh, I have money, I can do a fight show. So our job of that is because you're defending your turf, and it's fine, you got money, you want to come in here, you want to do a show, that's cool. We're gonna call your bluff, but. So we just kind of did it that way of no imitation. And then the other one was because everyone's like, we are all witness for LeBron. So we're like, witness this. But as far as maybe it was Mike Moran. Mike Moran did a lot of the voiceover. The NAAFS. Yeah, it was Mike. No, it was Mike Moran. He just did his voice really deep and just tweaked it. It was
I actually ran into a guy after my surgery. He was in the hospital. It was the weirdest thing. It was after my surgery last June, almost a year ago. I was in. I had to get up and walk every so often, just to stay active, blood clots and all that bullshit. I was walking through the halls.
Oh my god,
in
it
my
was the
gown,
worst.
just running down the hallway. Just
hilarious.
This guy comes up to me and goes, "Jackhammer," and I was like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" And,
he's dazed. He's dazed and confused on painkillers right now.
Yeah, I'm all doped up on morphine and fucking tramadol cocktails and shit, right? And he's like, "Jackhammer," and I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, man?" And he's like, you used to be the guy who did the backflip, right? I'm like, yeah. And I don't remember his name.
Told you it would get over.
No. The worst part about this is that he's in bariatric surgery. This is his post-op for his bariatric. So he's 400 pounds almost. And
I was 330.
Okay,
I was 335 pounds.
I'm sorry, I'm going over it.
Semantics.
Right,
I don't remember the guy's name, but he proceeded to go on and tell me that he was actually one of the guys who used to make trailers and shit like that for the NAAFS. He used to do promo videos for the NAAFS, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. But
depends on what he would look like, because I did the majority of the promo videos.
This had to have been. I think it might have been after.
It might have been after my time then.
Right there. But yeah, he said he used to make promo videos for the NAAFS, and something about selling them for $1,200 or some shit like that, trying to get money. I don't know, man. It was the weirdest.
Yeah, I definitely didn't sell any promo videos. I did for $1,200.
I didn't dream this shit. I know that I see.
Yeah, I mean, where hospital were you in?
City.
Because a lot of the early people from NAAFS actually I worked at City Hospital. So Mark Wallace, who came on board, my buddy Tony Spinoso, who was down on the cage crew, who was in charge of the ring girls and everything. He was our arena setup. We're all friends of mine that I worked with all at the hospital. So it's a very good chance. I mean, that
I'm pretty sure he worked at the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
I don't know what he did.
I would have laughed.
I think he was he a janitor, or maintenance, or a janitor, or anything.
Tony was. It might have been Wally, Mark Wallace. He was. He was a patient transportation.
He was about my height.
Bald.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway,
yet.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spend. I'm not
I
gonna
don't know.
spend.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah, because we could do this forever.
So wait a minute. So okay, you just said they all worked with you at the hospital.
Yeah.
So you did. So what did you do at the hospital?
I was a service response center coordinator. I answered phones. So I first started as a patient transportation, and then I moved over to SRC. So I'd answer phones for like maintenance, transportation, I don't know, whatever, environmental. Basically, if somebody had a complaint, a hotline, I'd be like,
Right.
service response center, this is Jake speaking. How can I help you? No, you don't call here to turn the TV on. No, this isn't the right number. No, it's on the TV. Ask your nurse. No, she's not. No, tell her not to call you. No. Yeah, so it's like that was the majority of my day.
Okay, so you went to the Ohio Center of Broadcasting.
Yeah, I went to the Ohio Center for Broadcasting, and then so that was there. And I remember that was like Fight Night Athletes 1, and like Tony, friends of mine were like fight fans, and I'm just like, hey, you guys want to be? Because we didn't have a crew.
Right.
There was no people to go around and poach from. It was just no one. So we're like, friends, you want to do this? And they're like, yeah, sure, let's go.
That's pretty much how
like,
me and Norm got this started.
Yeah, it's like
Was that Norm was like, hey, I want to start this podcast. I'm in my semi truck and I'm driving down the road and I'm like, dude, that's a great fucking idea.
Nobody was doing this, man.
Nobody was covering
The
it.
niche was okay. You got like the Matt Serra's, UFC talk, and you got like was it Brandon Schaub that does his shit, then Joe Rogan that does his shit. It's all UFC, but maybe Joe Rogan's not all UFC, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
They talk UFC, professional MMA, but how many people do you see doing local Northeast?
This is,
Ohio?
this is my, this is my origins where I came
Yeah.
from. And part of the reason why I couldn't commit before is, unfortunately, my job's in retail, and it's very hard for me to get a set thing
Right.
to have a time off every single week. Like, I would love, I miss this. This was fun. I remember every single week getting guys on, having them come in the studio, interview them, talk and stuff. We do segments. Our last NWFS radio, we did this thing called, because one of the things I always thought we needed to emphasize, and you can have this one if you want to, everyone always talked about fighting in the fight, so I always tried to throw in one question that had nothing to do with MMA.
Right.
Just because it would let the audience, the fans, see like, hey, this is a person and not just a fighter.
Holy
not
shit,
just,
that's what I do.
be like, hey, we do like 6 questions. Be like, who's toughest opponent, blah, 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 training camp. What's your favorite John Wayne movie? I don't know.
See,
Something ridiculous.
we were gonna do that at the Summit County Fairgrounds event. It would have been Honor 4, and but we were gonna do it with Jeremy Caudell's son, JJ. We were gonna follow him with the camera, and we were gonna have him interview the fighters and ask him like kid questions. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite animal? Shit like that.
Yeah.
But we were gonna do it in the sense of, hey, this is a little kid asking, not a grown man asking you what, do you prefer fucking a teddy bear to sleep with or a fucking unicorn? You know what I'm saying? Like dumb shit. I didn't want to be asking, hey man,
as they're warming up to fight.
yeah, right. Yeah.
What? Get the hell out of here,
How's
kid.
camp? How's your weight cut? What do you feel about your opponent? What's your favorite color?
I just have a vision of somebody walking up to like
Teddy bear or unicorn? Teddy bear or unicorn? Just tell me now. What do you rather sleep with?
I just have a vision of this happening like back in the day or even now, and somebody coming up to somebody like a strong style guy, and all of a sudden Mark is just giving him that look and just being like, because if you ever seen that look from him, it means run like hell. As far as you can, just run.
The only person I would ever ask that in an interview, I'd probably be like Emil Fisher. Like he's the only one that I could get away with asking him that question, and he'll actually answer it with a straight face. Maybe John Gunther. Maybe he'd be a good one too. But
Gunther would give you like an in-depth analysis.
Well, see, it has to have enough cotton on the inside
and
of
then
it.
Mitch Dotto would give you like a very literal answer. Because he's I don't know if you've seen our interviews with Mitch, man. It was like, hey, man,
good.
hey, how was camp?
It was good.
Good.
Okay. Would you learn anything? You do anything specifically in camp?
No, I walked in. I did exactly what I would do every time.
It was just simple.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
just-
I feel your pain. Believe me, I have plenty of years of experience trying to get blood from a turnip. Where you're just sitting there, you're like, okay, so tell me about this fight and stuff. Like, okay, yeah, blah blah. Fun fact on that one. So we talked about Rock and Rumble back in the day. One of the main events we did was Cujo Joe McCall against Josh Heavy Hendricks. So this is the main event. I got to do these promo videos and everything. Cujo and my schedule just did not coordinate. I'm trying everything to get him up there, and he's got stuff going on. We never got together, so I'm making a promo video. I got footage from Hendricks, but I got nothing from Cujo. So I had to call Joe McCall. I put together a promo video. Joe McCall never said, all the stuff I had from him was B-roll footage from the previous fights he was hyping up. I go, dude, and I told him beforehand, I go, just so you know, you're about to talk a whole mad load of shit you never actually said. And he starts laughing, and I sent it to him to look at the beginning. He's like, all right, man, that's cool. And I'm
That's
like, which is
awesome.
great. It's one of those inside secrets. Like, he never said any of it, but no one knew it in the crowd. And he's like, I'm going to come in there. I'm going to beat him. I'm going to knock him out. And it was just really funny. He's like, I know. He's like, even I said it, but that was like 2 opponents ago. I was like, well, you should have freed up your schedule. You shouldn't have canceled on me.
Joe McCall, he's the reason why I decided to not go pro as a heavyweight.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go pro as a heavyweight either to fight him.
I mean, it wasn't even to fight him. I was training with him, and I was like 3 fights into my amateur career, and he was obviously a professional heavyweight. And it was my first true look at what a true professional heavyweight looked like. He walked around 280, cut weight to 265. And he broke my nose and I thought he was going to break my neck and a head and arm in training. And it was the first realization of, wow, I am too little. You know, I mean, my weight, I was 260, 265. I'm too little to be in this division. And it was like the first real, like, man, that's why I never went pro. I had 9 fights with a winning record. I could have went pro back then, back when they had just made the rule. Because when I started fighting, they had just made the 5-fight minimum.
Yeah, I remember
and you
that.
had to have a winning record. I could have went pro, and I didn't because of Joe. So thanks, Joe. If you
Thanks,
ever
Joe
come
McCall.
across this,
Thanks,
podcast,
Joe McCall.
thank you, Joe, because you made my decision, and that's why I've always been trying to get to a lower weight class because of that.
Yeah, you know, it was always like that emphasis too on stuff like you know, for that's smart. That's a smart fighter. That's a smart person. You see that, and you're like, okay, I don't want to deal with what I'm facing. Like, this is not going to work out for me.
Right.
And you know, you always always best if you want to be a truly successful professional fighter. You need your weight class needs to go around your frame and what your frame is and what you've got.
Yeah.
Like, we used to always joke around, like, if I was ever a fight, which I never had a desire to ever be a fighter.
Right.
I mean, I would go, don't get me wrong, if the opportunity ever came up and from, like, you know, if I could get CM Punk money to go in the ring and get my ass kicked, I would totally do it. But it's never been like that dream of mine to be like, oh, I want to go fight. People used to ask all the time, why don't you fight? I'm like, look at me. That's why I don't fight. I'm like, come on, man. But at the same time, it's like, I know there was a one time back in the day of myself and, I mean, heck, in 2011, if we did an exhibition of myself versus Greg back then or somebody, people would have paid money head over fist to see it. But
Really?
it was an issue with, there was drama. I was stupid. But I would have never wanted, like, the desire was never there. It just it didn't really appeal to me. Like, I would work a pro wrestling match with somebody and then be like, come on, don't you know how to work? That would be fun.
Right.
But it was like, I never would like actually get in there and like, I don't like getting punched. I don't like to punch people. Doesn't appeal to me. Jiu-jitsu I find cool. I find that part awesome. Like, I've always I don't know why I
It's
never
all
have.
grappling.
Yeah.
Is why, so.
Yeah, I was like maybe I'm like, you know,
Although then you get this kind of issue
that's fine.
when you go and do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Not always.
On Sundays.
Just if I was 10 pounds lighter,
On Sundays.
probably wouldn't.
You don't do BJJ on Sunday.
That was the one time that I went to open mat. I never went to open mat because I record my podcast on Sundays. The one day I said, you know what? I need to go to open mat because I'm competing in a tournament in a couple weeks. I end up fucking.
I get a
popping the
phone
damn
call
red, man.
at
That's,
3:45.
you know, it's part that happens.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine.
At
You'll come
3:45,
back
I get a
and you'll be
phone
good.
call from his wife. Norm's going to the hospital right now.
I mean, I
What?
only went
That
because my
happened.
wife told me
You
I
know,
wasn't
yeah.
gonna go,
Yeah,
but.
that I also believe. You're like, I'll be fine. Walk it off.
No,
No, the only reason after
we
my fight
tried.
with Josh Stansberry, the only reason why I went to the hospital is because the Greg Kalikas and the doctor, the outside doctor, big buff dude. What was his name?
The outside doctor back then? That would have been OAC guy. I don't remember who it was.
But he
It was OAC guy
they
one.
they basically
Dr. Jerome.
they basically was like, you need to go because my lip. Russ Halsey, you know, he was a paramedic. He was like, you need to like close this lip, and then I had to have reconstructive surgery on my lip. But
I didn't know it was reconstructive.
yep, because it was he caught me and my lip went into my mouthpiece and went through my into my tooth and it cut from here all the way down and inside my mouth and it literally pulled my lip apart like this. It was pretty good. It was a pretty good shot, man. He caught me with the right straight, and that's what happens when you get guilt tripped into taking a fucking title fight against a guy who is 11 fights deep, and that fight would have never gotten approved. in
Today, no,
today,
that fight would
it
have
never
gotten,
would have gotten
that fight
approved.
would have never gotten approved.
But
That was just one of those what it was situations.
They just there was that fight was
You
the
said you
reason
paved the
why-
way. So
Me, I wouldn't. I didn't do
That fight,
I said the NWA,
Oh.
meant the NAAFS.
in a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, stuff like that. I mean, yeah.
no, that fight was that after that fight, I lost all respect for promoters for the most part, because that felt like I got the short end of the fucking bargain on that one. I mean, I was guilt tripped in because they said, you know, and I was like, Greg called me up and goes, dude, you're the last one. You're our last guy. Please take this fight. We have no one. If you don't take this fight, we're just gonna give him the belt. And me at 19 years old goes, well, I'm not gonna fucking give him the belt. I'm gonna take the goddamn. I'll make him earn it, knowing that I probably shouldn't have taken the fight on 3-week notice, smoking a pack a day.
Now you were working
And
as a security guard.
No, I wasn't. No, I was. See, I was. I was
You were
a
security.
bouncer. I was a bouncer
Oh,
at a
ecstasy.
strip club. But
Ecstasy.
I was smoking a pack a day. I wasn't training, and it's 3 weeks notice. I was 4-2. Josh was 10-1, and I said, no, fuck this. I'm gonna go ahead and take the fight. I'm gonna make him earn it. I ended up getting not to get knocked out. I lost by TKO. They tried to hype it up a little bit. I got interviewed. You interviewed me for that fight.
yeah,
Jessica, I was part of that
actually-
too. And then hey, let's build it up like a Rocky story. Anything can happen.
That was my idea.
You know,
was
jackhammer's never been knocked. Jackhammer's never been finished.
That was the story behind
Yeah.
it because before this happens, we're sitting through and the original the original person was Stipe. But Stipe,
Right, Stipe was supposed
was
to-
hurt
Yeah,
and he
Stipe
couldn't
got hurt.
fight.
And that's why they said
and
they
then
call me up and go, Norm, you're the last one.
And then
you know?
then there was an argument which was really fun. We're like, well, why don't we move the fight until
January.
January for those two to fight? And then the judge stands at a valid point. He goes, it's called Night of Champions. No one else gets to move it around because I'm like, he's got a point.
Yeah.
He's got a valid point. So then we sat down, worked through every single person on the roster, and it came down to we're like, okay, who can it possibly be? And it was one of those. I mean, like, if with the mentality that I have now, 10 years later, I mean, I obviously would take a different. I probably would look at you and sell the same. If it was my job and it was my job, then I'd be like, hey man, I would probably sit then.
If you were to offer me the fight right now, I would still take the fight. What the reason why my issue was afterwards, it was I got injured and I got stuck with the bill because
That sucks.
and that was the bit. And when I approached Greg about it, then it became you signed a waiver, and the OAC gave me the paper to give to the hospital for insurance, but when it came time, the hospital approached me and goes, there's no address to send the bill. We can't send the bill to this. There's nothing here. There's no one for us to charge. It's gonna go to you. And I got stuck with almost $2,000. And I think Greg gave me like $400.
That again, I can't speak on that because I wasn't a part
I'm
of.
not saying. I'm just saying
but,
that
like,
that was the night where I kind of politically got involved with MMA, and I said,
and understandably
okay.
so.
I said, okay,
understandably
I need to
so.
start. I need to, and I make it a part now, like because I'm with Apex Fight Systems now. I make it a part of all these younger guys that come up and go, hey man, don't do this. You should probably not do this.
Again,
learn from this.
There was some renegade stuff that went on back then, and it wasn't. I mean, everybody. I've seen promoters, and I'm not going to name names that did stuff much worse.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, it
Yes.
sucks that happened to you. And I mean, like, it wasn't the first time, probably wasn't the last time. It's a side effect of, unfortunately, the dark underbelly that exists within this. Right. And I mean, but at the same time, I remember selling that, and I'm sitting there because again, my job was to sell the fight. Right. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, and I remember plain this day sitting there looking at it, going, how the hell do I sell this? Because I can't sell it as well. Everyone's hurt. The end. You know, and you were just coming off of the loss to.
I was coming off of a win.
Was it a win?
Yeah, it was a win.
I had just taken a fight on 15-minute notice, which would never get approved
but
now.
My question is, was it in NAAFS?
No, it wasn't.
No.
That's why it didn't count back then for us because we never acknowledged. We'd acknowledge it, but we didn't promote it if it was outside the company. And
I think it
but
was
we would
for,
use it to show, but like they always see, like, yeah, he totally just won. Because if you're coming off of a loss to do it,
But I was NAAFS. I was coming off a loss to Tony Underwood.
Yes.
By decision from September.
Yes, but the sell on that was like, basically, how do I say he got screwed without saying he got screwed?
Right.
Well, like, because then I'd have to deal with all the other people on that. 'Cause
Yeah, you
I
gotta deal
couldn't
with the
piss
other
Tony.
side.
I can't go. That's the thing back then, and still now, I'm very blessed that now to this day. Back then, I made a point to try to be friends with every single one of the boys because at the end of the day, the boys were the show.
Yeah.
Right.
The boys were the fight show, and this is the thing. with nowadays getting into, and we could talk for 4.5 hours about the old days and stuff. I got years of stories I could share. So if you ever want me back, let me know.
Oh, you're definitely coming back.
You're coming back because we're definitely gonna have to because we reminisce on the old times. Now we got to reschedule so we could talk about
what is in
where
the
do you
future.
see the future. Unless you can get it in 10 minutes.
I could do a teaser in 10 minutes.
Why don't you give us a 2-minute teaser after we finish up a little bit of the reminiscing? Because you're giving me a whole lot of information that I've been wanting. I wanted to go to all of his shows. I wanted to. I'm his best friend. I've been around for him every day for his life for the most part from 7 Up.
Awesome.
But, I didn't get to have that because my life got in the way.
Yeah.
And now I get to have that life again, but I don't know shit about his amateur career.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So I have to listen to it, and I only get the same stories because you can't remember half of it.
Well, that's a side effect of getting punched in the face.
I know. That's
basically, I got an iron jaw.
I can attest to this.
I've never been knocked out, and I've got like the heart of 5 men.
And I can attest to that too.
Back then, the idea of fighting was roughly new in Ohio, and there was a lot of fight teams, well-established fight teams, but none in my area where that I was able to afford to go to the time, which is why I hooked up with Rising Phoenix, tried to do my own thing with Team Domination, and then ultimately hooked up with Russ Halsey and Payne Headquarters.
Rest in peace, Russ. We love you.
Yeah, man, definitely. Sad news when I was in Afghanistan when I got that
I was in California.
I talked to him a week before it happened too.
I actually talked to Matt 5 minutes after he talked to Russ.
Yeah,
so that's another story for another time.
Yeah, definitely another time. But I hooked up with Russ Halsey and Payne Headquarters. I became one of the original 4, one of the original 5, and I still got the T-shirt to prove it.
I have mine somewhere. I have the long sleeve red.
Yeah. I got the one before
Payne Headquarters
before the logo, the star logo.
Yeah, that's the one I've got.
And I guess it just says Jackhammer on the back.
Oh yeah, that's rad.
But yeah, I hooked up with Payne Headquarters, and that's where we started training at Unique Fitness, Scott Keener's place, and then followed Russ when he got his own spot over on Arlington. But
I just drove by there yesterday, and I thought of Russ. I was like,
every
time I go by there, I'm like, Payne Headquarters.
I've been in there one time, and that was the time that Norm decided to put me and my cousin.
That was a different gym. You're talking about Unique Fitness. It was another gym.
I thought it was
Russ's was up more. But anyway,
anyways,
as far as going back to my amateur career and how I was back then, there wasn't a lot of training for me. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, but after I fought Troy Brown, which I actually got a chance to talk to Troy after
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We were reminiscing about the old fight. I had never thought I'd see that dude. Yeah, it was Operation. No, it wasn't Summit. It was Shockwave.
I said Shockwave.
Oh, Shockwave. Sorry, but I actually got to reminisce with him and catch him. But it was very rare. I don't really get a chance to talk to the guys that I fought with or fought against. But anyway, so I just got done with him. You guys had just did the Fighter of the Week, which is still on YouTube. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and
you're the only one that's still on YouTube. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But
you're the only one left.
No, it was weird. It was like,
but when my fight with John Hedges got announced, somebody got on the forum board where all the shit talking took place and said, "Dude, you're gonna lose. I don't know why you think that you're gonna win." And I tried to make an argument for myself and hey, no, I'm undefeated. I'm up and coming. What the hell do you know? And they turn around and basically watched my fight. I don't know how many times they must have watched that clip, but they broke down every mistake that I ever made during that fight against Troy Brown. And they're like, basically came down to, you're an inexperienced brawler.
Right.
Your ground game is shit. You mounted like an amateur. You just everything, just pointed out everything that I did wrong. And that was when I realized that, wow, I am an inexperienced brawler. The only reason why I got the wins that I did was because I was just a better brawler.
Yeah.
I wasn't skill-wise. I wasn't better. I just, that's why when I fought anyone with an ounce of skill, I had a hard time. I was fighting guys who were coming in, I've never lost a street fight.
Oh, God.
Those tough guys. That's who I was going up against. And I was just a better fighter. And that's why now I'm not just jumping in the cage and fighting. I'm actually training.
You have experience, and you're like, because back then, again, we were saying before, none of us had, we didn't have anything to work with. We just kind of were just like, let's just throw shit against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah,
back then, that was the majority of heavyweights. We're just big dudes like, I kicked 17 guy's ass outside the bar. I was like,
and that's why.
And you see him come in, punch, get gassed, lose.
Yeah, and that is why I don't want to be in the heavyweight anymore, and that's why why I'm training to. I want to fight at 170, and I firmly believe that if I can get to 170 and I can get there safely, I'll be able to go pro at 170. I think that I'll be I'm not going to be like the best in the world at 170, but god damn it, I could be a pain in the ass at 170.
Could you beat up CM Punk?
Yes, I would be more than
Just
happy.
go punch
I might
CM Punk.
actually be, if I time it right, I might actually be
And they got a
able
picture
to take
taken
that
with him.
fight. I'm able to get fight CM Punk if I play my cards right, man. Get down to 170, win the next 2, 3, maybe 4 fights in my amateur career, go pro, win like maybe if I win one.
Look at him, he had this
You got a lot of long-term plans, assuming that CM Punk's not a pro wrestler again by September.
Well, I'm hoping that he
I'm
steps
hoping
away
he's a
from the
pro
UFC.
wrestler again by September.
I'm hoping that he steps away from the UFC and just starts fighting in some like small.
He's
shit
39
shows.
years old and he has money. He's not stepping away from the UFC. He's not doing this for the love. He did it to make money. That's it. And I listened to a Bubba Ray Dudley, called him out on Busted Open. He goes, "Really? If you really want to leave wrestling, go by Phil Brooks. Don't go by CM Punk." And that's it. You got no argument there. No one gives a shit about Phil Brooks.
Right.
That's why he doesn't go by Phil Brooks. And that's that. And that's my opinion on that.
No, exactly. I agree 100%. But no, I just think that I'll be a very hard opponent at 170. I'm not. I mean, I said I'm not going to win every fight, but with my iron jaw, ability to take punches from heavyweights and not get knocked out, and I'll be faster. And if I can retain an ounce of strength,
Faster,
because I have
better,
very heavy
stronger.
hands. I mean, hell, my last guy that I fought, I broke his nose and his cheekbone.
Yeah.
You know, and that guy he outweighed me by 30 pounds, and he was like 6'4". You know, I'm 5'7". I don't belong in the heavyweight, man, but I can still beat up heavyweights. You put me at a 170, man. I think I give everyone a hard time.
Yeah, well,
I think our outro music should be.
But yeah, you have to promise me if I get to 170, when my first fight back, you got to be there.
I'll be there.
You need to be there.
Okay, I'll be there.
You know, buy a ticket from me.
I'll buy a ticket from you. I got some, I've got some skills I could probably use for you if you want.
And
What? Nothing.
Is
Oh
there-
no, there's no rule saying you can't, record. Get some old school. I still got it in me. I am the 2017 ring announcer of the year. Just saying, Norm the Jackhammer Carrero. I can still do
no,
it.
dude, we'll
I
just
can still do it.
we'll just
still do it.
hey, we'll bring Jake in to do to help you with the pre-fight interviews. man.
Yeah, there we go.
I pulled on that. It'd be fun. Do whatever. Do
Would
whatever.
you quit pulling on cords now?
Yeah, that's what I do. I tug on strings, pull on cords. But guys, this is we're up against it. Like this is it's a lot of fun. Reminded me of the old days of NAFS radio and where everything started. And I'd love to come back because we actually never got into like what we originally
Yeah, I
were
know,
talking
and that's-
about in the first
And
place.
that's what I was about. We usually
you know,
we only got about 45 minutes to an hour. Typically, if we had more time, if we could dedicate more time, then we would just go because we have gone an hour and a half before. I think when we had James Neff and Andrew Law.
Andrew Law.
Oh, I love those dudes.
Yeah,
Dude,
and
I'll tell you what,
we're trying to
James
do.
Neff-
We're trying to get a take two with them as well.
James Neff
That's
is going
awesome.
to surprise the hell out of everybody on his next
He's
fight.
280, man. Right now,
280.
He's
He's dropping down.
He was 330 pounds, 27 pounds his
Yeah.
last fight. So I'm impressed. It reminds me of what I did when I dropped like 66 pounds when I fought Shad Conley for my my MMA debut. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I wish we had more time. We'll definitely have you back. Again, guys, as Rubber City Throwdown, the official voices of Honor Fighting Championship, Fighting Championship 5 at Chaparral's June 30th. Definitely going to be a good show. A lot of big names fighting. And until next time, guys.
Later.